You ready? Dump truck. All right, welcome back to Fabrication 101. Whew, a little out of breath there for a second. We're going to be back working on the dump truck today. I want to try to get this finished up since I just spent a bunch of money ordering stuff for the pond. I need to remove a few things before we can fit the filter box in here and make sure everything lines up, because I need to fit it in there before I can build the part that brings it out to the grill. So a couple of things I have to remove. These tension rods on either side that kind of go to the fenders. I'm going to have a brace that comes back in here after this is all done, and I'm not really worried about losing some strength out here because this thing's not going to be going down the road ever again. So another thing I need to remove is this steering box, which is interesting because it's part of the steering column. I haven't messed with these before, but I'm thinking that steering column is actually threaded into that box somehow, but I want to keep the steering wheel and stuff on the inside, but I don't need that steering column there, and the steering box is in the way, so I need to remove it. And there's a few other little things in here, some hoses and lines and some of this airline stuff I need to pull. So we're going to get on that, and then we're going to work on finishing up the rest of the box. So I'm going to set you guys off over here, and then I'm going to get to work trying to remove the rest of that stuff out of there. cleaned out. It was a bit of a struggle. I was actually kind of surprised that my little pitman arm puller pulled the steering arm right off the steering box. That part actually came up pretty easily. Probably the hardest part was cutting through the old steering column with the Sawzall. I really wanted to avoid using a grinder or like a cutoff wheel and a torch because when I drained the fuel out of this and when I did some cleaning, I kind of spilled a little bit of old gas on the ground. It's been a couple weeks. I think it's pretty well dissipated, but I can still kind of smell the old gas out here. So I really didn't want to be making a bunch of sparks unless I didn't have to. I'm going to have to eventually because I am going to cut the frame in half. And I'm not going to do that with a Sawzall. I'm going to do that with a cutting torch, which will be much, much easier. So the steering box came out. Unfortunately, when it did come out, it did fall on my foot, which is not a big deal because I have steel toe boots on, but it did hit me in the shin also, which kind of hurt. So before I set the aluminum in here, ooh, lost my balance. Before I set the aluminum in here, we're gonna steam clean it a little bit more, trying to get a little bit more of that dirt and junk off of, especially under where that steering box was. I want to get that as clean as I can before I put the aluminum box in here. I'm probably going to put something between it and the steel frame just to kind of insulate it a little bit so there's no rubbing. I don't know, I just don't want it to wear through prematurely for whatever reason. Once I've got the box set in here, then I can put the grill back on and get an idea how long my ramp needs to be for the water to come out the front of the grill. But I think it's about to I keep feeling raindrops. I think it's going to start raining on me, so we will pick that up tomorrow. All right, now that it's in there, hopefully you guys can get a better idea how this is going to work. Hopefully the lighting's not too bad. That aluminum glare is pretty good. So the box fits in there really well. I'm going to have to do a little bit of bracing on the back end of it, which is fine. It's not that big a deal. I'm going to also have to run a brace across from the radiator support underneath to keep it from tipping. Right now there's a clamp in there. I don't know if you guys can see that clamp down there. So the idea here is that the water will come from here and dump right here out the front of the grill. I think I'm going to go ahead and try to make this ramp, whatever you want to call it, spillway, open up so that the water kind of dumps on both sides of these braces. I think that'll give it the best look. May have to do like a little diverter thing around those to make it work. Should be pretty cool when it's all done. It's going to take a little bit of work to get this part figured out. I'm going to do some CAD work, some cardboard aided design for sure. And then probably what will end up having to happen is there'll be a piece of material that comes on the back of this and goes all the way across to kind of close that up and hopefully, you know, keep you from being able to see through the front. I'll probably just paint it black, put a piece of steel in there or something, just to close that up a little bit. But you can kind of get an idea how this is going to work now, hopefully, if I figure out how to get out of my shadow. The water will come down the spillway and out here. And it should flow pretty good. I've got some ideas on how to make this part look like. I'm going to leave the bumper and everything there. Maybe throw some gravel up here or something like that so that it looks like it's been sitting for a while. But I think it should look pretty good when it's done. So before I can work on the spillway, though, I do need to get it somewhat permanently secured where it's going to go. And I think that's going to involve building a brace across the back here. So that because the back corner on the very bottom is actually inside of the frame of the truck, and so there's not a lot of support there. And then do that one, and then the one on the front, which that one's actually pretty straightforward because there's a place I can bolt to on the back side of this where the original fan shroud bolted up. So that one shouldn't be too difficult, but we'll get those done. so that we can make sure it stays in place somewhat permanently, and then we will figure out our spillway. Tacked in there, pretty straightforward. I did decide to go ahead and slot the holes. I don't know, I'm kind of just easier than trying to make it perfect, and I want to be able to play with how I mount the back a little bit, whether I kind of leave it free, set it on some padding or some wood or something. I don't know, I just felt like slotting these holes was the best way to do this. And some of you guys probably saw me kind of sawing back and forth with the little file, and thinking, oh, that's not the right way to do that stuff with a file. You're only supposed to on the push stroke, but kind of with softer material like aluminum, doing that kind of sawing motion kind of benefits you, because on the backstroke it helps to clean the chips out. So it did file out pretty nicely and clean. So I'm gonna go ahead and stick this in there, and then we'll see where we can go from there. Okay, well, it's in there. Bolts are in there, so it's in there nice and tight now. It should not go anywhere. So the next thing I gotta do is put the smaller part of the grill back in place, sort of temporarily, and then start doing some CAD work. All right, CAD work is pretty much done. There's a little fine tuning that needs to be done, but that can be done after I start getting the aluminum fit together. Weather is turning. It's getting pretty cold out here, so unfortunately you'll notice these holes are gigantic, which is not that big of a deal, but halfway through, or while struggling with that, I realized that this grill is not centered, even though it is where it's supposed to be. Somehow this front half is shifted over to one side, which is not that big a deal. It actually kind of adds to the feel, the charm, I guess. So anyway, we'll get these pieces popped back out, and see if we can get them tacked together in aluminum. Go ahead and tack them onto the box, and then we'll put everything back in and see how everything fits, make sure everything fits good. And then once it's there, we'll go ahead and weld it out. Everything's tacked together. So anyway, let's go see how this fits in the truck and hope that I got these notches correct because they were kind of tight. I did intentionally set these up not at a corner to corner fit up. They're more of like a half lap, as I'd like to call it. And that's, again, I did the same thing on the tank. The idea is I want to be able to pulse weld this kind of autogenously, which means with no filler metal. And so my hope is that with that half lap fit up, I don't have to put a bunch of filler in there. But let's go see how it fits. All right, so it's in there. Hopefully the lighting's not too bad. I'm kind of trying to block the sun here. It is just sitting in there, and you can see how tight these little spillway diverters are gonna be. That one's really tight. This one's right up against it. I think I can, this side I'm gonna have to tweak just a little bit to get that to line up, but this is just tacked still. Let's go ahead and get those bottom parts welded, and then we'll bring the top in, or the tank in, and get it tacked. All right, as you can see, got the spillway all welded up. Got my little spillway diverters here. Got the welds all done, this whole long seam. One other thing I did while it's out is I went ahead and popped a 3-inch hole here, and that is for this big bulkhead fitting that will go in there, and that's where my water is going to come in at. So my next step with this is going to be to haul it outside, wrestle it back into the dump truck, and then put the grill back in place, and hopefully everything fits. Everything fit beforehand, and there really shouldn't be any reason why it won't fit now, but you never know. We'll pick this up back after I get it out in the truck in just a few minutes. that's kind of the gist of it. There will be a lot more water flowing when it's all finally set up. So this right here is just off my garden hose running through there. And I want to say like the gallons per hour, because I measured it when I was doing my sprinklers, was only like 80 or something like that. The pump that I've got that's going to feed this is a 5,000 gallon per hour pump. And if my math is correct, the head pressure by the time it gets up into here should be somewhere around 3,000 gallons per hour. So I'm actually a little concerned I might have too much water flowing when this is all said and done. So overall, pretty pleased with it. Went in pretty well. Had to monkey with it a little bit, mostly to get this grill to fit back in here, because you can see everything's a little wonky, which I think kind of adds to the character of it. But I think it'll look pretty good when it's all said and done. Well, I think it's going to do it for this episode of Fabrication 101. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you're liking this stuff, if you think somebody else would like it, make sure you hit that like or subscribe button if you haven't already. Share it with a friend if you think they might appreciate this stuff. On the next episode of Fabrication 101, we're going to be working on the Bronco again, because I got some goodies for it. And it's time to finish up a few things on it. I have an ARB air compressor and a manifold kit so that I can get my front air locker finally plumbed into this thing so that it's ready to go out on the trail. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to Fabrication 101, and I will see you on the next episode. In the meantime, do me a favor, do yourself a favor, and go build something.